What's up, guys? Welcome to another SnapCount session. Big week this week. Lots of teams on buys. We've actually reached what's called BYEMAGGEDON. 6 teams on buy, which means there's only 13 games on this weekend. This is the smallest slate of games that we will have all regular NFL season. What's going to happen right now is I will review some of my takes from last week, but then dive into instead of likes and dislikes, I'm going to do just some streamers that you can use in the flex, wide receiver twos, some tight ends, anything like that, because of all the buys, and there are a ton of injuries going on right now. So trying to help you guys out with some guys you could just plug in your lineup for this week and try to get a W. Reviewing last week, couple of bad takes I had. I was down on a couple studs, one of which being Jahmyr Gibbs. I thought he'd have a down game, and then he went on and literally had the best game of his entire career. Tampa's got a good run defense, but it didn't matter. A.J. Brown, thought he'd have a bad game. It was a Devontae Smith game, but A.J. Brown had 2 touchdowns on literally just 4 catches. So, bad call on my part. And then Mason Taylor and Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams, God, he's just so inconsistent. Literally gave you a goose egg. And Mason Taylor, lesson learned. Don't trust any Jets players at this point. Honestly, even Breece Hall. I love Breece Hall, but he's worth playing still. Maybe he gets traded. That'd be nice. But, for now, he's the only Jet player worth a shit. As far as my good calls, my play of the week, Quinshon Judkins, 3 touchdowns. As Larry David would say, that's pretty good. Cortland Sutton. I said 7 catches. He had 6. He did catch a 2-point conversion, which would make 7 catches, but that doesn't show up in the stat sheet, unfortunately. You did get 2 points out of him from that, though. And then Ashton Jeanty and Xavier Worthy, I thought they'd have bad games, and they did. Jeanty was a game script thing. He obviously is a good running back. And when I say game script, there's actually a couple good examples over the last few days. I'll start with that game. Kansas City versus Las Vegas. When I say game script, Kansas City got up on Vegas really, really quick, and so it made the running game completely obsolete, right? So Vegas had to throw the ball in order to keep up with KC. Because, when you're down that many scores, you're not going to run the ball. And then on the flip side, just this Thursday, I had Charger pass catchers on multiple teams, and they were great in the first half, but they got up on Minnesota so quickly that in the second half, all they did was run the ball, right? So that's what I mean by game script. And the you can try to predict this stuff by looking at the Vegas spread. And an example I have for tomorrow or Sunday is New England is minus, and there's a ton of spreads that are big this week, so you can try to use it to your advantage. New England's -7 against Cleveland. So that would mean Ramondre Stevenson's a better play, obviously, than Travion Henderson, which he has been all year, and that ground game, not so great. But Travion Henderson is the passing down back. They're not going to need him from what Vegas says, right? They think New England is going to be up the entire game. They're going to win handily, and so they don't need to throw the ball a ton, or they don't need the passing down back or whatever. You could use that for any other game, but that's what I mean when I say game script. I'm going to say that a lot in my next few videos. Anyway, moving on. Teams on bye this week: Rams, Raiders, Jags, Cardinals, Lions, Seahawks. Again, only 13 games on this weekend. My goal here is to just give you guys some flex fillers, some wide receiver twos, maybe some tight end streamers, just to get you by this week. I'm not going to do likes or dislikes or anything like that. I will give you my absolute pick of the week. Last week was Judkins. This week it's going to be George Pickens. Dallas is playing against my Broncos, of course, but CeeDee Lamb's going to see plenty of Surtain, but it sounds like Surtain's going to basically just lock up one side of the field rather than travel, because Lamb likes to float into the slot quite a bit, which Surtain doesn't fuck around down there. He's really just more of a perimeter guy. Either way, Pickens is going to see a lot of Riley Moss, and Riley Moss gets picked on a lot. And he has a real hard time with bigger receivers, i.e. T. Higgins, who absolutely owns him. The one thing when you start Pickens against Moss, you're going to get frustrated because Moss will get called for a pass interference on a deep ball, and you're not going to get any points out of Pickens because of that. That's just a disclaimer for you guys. Anyways, some streamers. My number one streamer, honestly, is Alec Pierce from Indianapolis. I heard a wild stat this week that I want to share. This year's Colts team they average the most points per drive out of any team in the last 25 years. Think about all the quarterbacks, all the offenses that we've seen since the year 2000. This year's Colts team averages more points per drive than any of them. They're the most efficient offense that there is since then. Pierce is more than just a deep threat these days. He's really refined his craft. He's become more of a complete receiver. Really like Alec Pierce. Moving on to the Houston receivers. Obviously, Nico Collins out with a concussion. So you've got your choice between Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. Higgins profiles more like Collins, and he's probably going to slide into Collins' spot, but if I had my choice, I would pick Noel. I mean, he had a lot more targets last week once Collins went down. I would take Noel. Similar thing with the Denver receivers. Obviously, Courtland Sutton is the alpha, and there's really a 2A, 2B there with Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims. The difference is Mims is more of the gadget guy, I guess. Sean Payton actually draws up plays to get Mims the ball. Things like wheels out of the backfield, end arounds, or things like that. But Franklin runs more routes. He's on the field more. And obviously he's Bo Nix's ex-teammate. And Bo just looks for him quite a bit. They're going to connect on a deep ball here soon. And then Xavier Legette. Once Bryce Young got hurt in the third quarter, Legette caught 4 balls for 60 yards with Andy Dalton. And Andy Dalton should get the start tomorrow. I think Bryce Young has a high ankle sprain, so he should be out for a minute. Really like Legette. He's come on strong the last few weeks. And then Tez Johnson. Emeka Egbuka is still not healthy, man. Like, a hamstring is usually a 2 to 3 week injury, and he came back after 1. And you could tell last week he's laboring a little bit. I think Tez is a good play. And then I got a couple of running backs for y'all too. Brashard Smith out of Kansas City. Speed guy, obviously. They've been ramping him up the last few weeks. And now Kareem Hunt is hurt. And so he slides into the number 2 spot in Kansas City behind Pacheco. And Pacheco's been good, or he's looked better at least the last couple weeks. He scored obviously last week, but Kansas City loves their speed, dude, and Brashard Smith is a firecracker. You could do worse in the flex spot than Brashard Smith for sure. And then Tyler Algier, love him for a spot flex start this week. They play Miami, and of course, Judkins just put 3 touchdowns on them last week. They like Algier in the red zone or in the low red zone, green zone, whatever you want to call it. I think he could score this week, absolutely. And then I'm going to give you guys some tight ends because it is National Tight Ends Week or National Tight Ends Day. You saw what Gaston did on Thursday. Here are some spot starts I think you guys could use. Dawson Knox, if Kincaid does not play. Buffalo's coming off a bye. They're going against Carolina. If Kincaid doesn't play, Dawson Knox, absolutely throw him in. Cade Otton, this should be an obvious one. Once Mike Evans went out, Otton became the guy, even more so than Igbuka. Last week he had 9 targets and 7 catches, and they played New Orleans this week, so it's a really good matchup. Kyle Pitts, 10 targets, 7 catches last week. They play Miami. Again, just like Algier, good matchup. Dallas Goedert, a little bit inconsistent this year, but his best game came a couple weeks ago against the Giants. Who do they play this week? The Giants. I also think Philly is a little bit pissed after their last showing against the Giants. I think Philly really gets after this week. Theo Johnson for the Giants. He's definitely a red zone threat. He obviously had that fluky tip ball touchdown, long touchdown last week, which padded his stats. But all year he's been a red zone target. I think he could get in the box this year, this week, and then. I hate to do this again, but Mason Taylor. Mason Taylor if Tyrod Taylor starts. Tyrod Taylor is just obviously a better passer, and I think he can get the ball to Mason Taylor. And, who's the number 1 target there now? Josh Reynolds? Come on. Mason Taylor has to break out at some point. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I tried to make this quick. If you have any questions regarding anybody that I didn't mention, please just leave a comment. I'm happy to answer anything that you guys got. Other than that, have a profitable weekend. Cheers.